I watched from my bedroom window as Jessica walked around my backyard with a measuring tape, gesturing excitedly to someone on her phone about the outdoor kitchen we'll install and where the kids' playground will go. She was planning renovations to a house she thought belonged to someone else. A house she was trying to manipulate me into buying for her. A house that I'd secretly owned for 3 months. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're from. Let me tell you how I ended up hiding in my own home. Watching my daughter-in-law make plans for property, she was actively trying to steal from me through emotional manipulation. 4 months earlier, my life looked completely different. I was Diana Martinez, 59 years old, recently retired from my job as a bank manager, and apparently naive enough to believe my son Carlos and his wife Jessica actually wanted what was best for me. After my husband Roberto died 2 years ago, I'd been living alone in our modest 3-bedroom ranch house in Phoenix. It was fine, but it held too many memories and not enough space for the new life I wanted to build. Roberto's pension had left me comfortable, and his life insurance gave me options I'd never had before. Carlos and Jessica had been increasingly involved in my finances since Roberto's death, always framed as loving concern. "Mom, you need to think about your future," Carlos would say during our weekly dinners. "Maybe something smaller, easier to maintain." Jessica would nod enthusiastically. "Diana, you could get such a nice condo for seniors. No yard work, maintenance included. Built-in community." They made it sound like I was one step away from assisted living, when in reality, I was a healthy 59-year-old woman who just gained the freedom to live however I wanted for the first time in decades. But instead of arguing, I started looking at properties secretly. Not condos, not senior communities, but the kind of house I'd always dreamed of. Something with character. Space for hobbies, room for guests if I wanted them. That's when I found the Spanish Colonial on Sunset Drive. Built in 1925, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. Original tile work, a courtyard garden, and enough charm to make me fall in love at first sight. The asking price was steep, $485. Zero, but Roberto's insurance money could cover it entirely. Here's where I made my smartest decision in months. Something told me to keep the purchase quiet. Maybe it was years of managing other people's financial secrets at the bank. Maybe it was intuition about Jessica's increasingly probing questions about my spending habits. Whatever it was, I bought that house through a trust, hired a property management company, and kept my mouth shut. For 2 months, I had contractors working discreetly, updated electrical, refreshed the kitchen, restored the original hardwood floors, replanted the garden. I wanted everything perfect before the big reveal. I imagined Carlos's face when I handed him the keys and told him this was their new family home. I pictured Jessica's tears of gratitude, their children playing in the big backyard, the Sunday dinners we'd have in that beautiful dining room. Instead, I got the education of my lifetime about just how manipulative people can be when they smell money. The morning I planned to surprise them, I arrived at the house early to do a final walkthrough. Everything was perfect. The restored tile gleamed, the kitchen looked like something from a magazine, and the master bedroom had been transformed into a serene retreat. I was practically vibrating with excitement as I called Carlos. "Can you and Jessica meet me for lunch today? I have something wonderful to show you both." "Actually, Mom, Jessica and I are house hunting today. We found this incredible place that might be perfect for our growing family." Growing family. My heart leaped. "Are you having another baby?" "Well, not exactly. We're thinking about expanding our household. Jessica's been talking about maybe taking in her younger sister while she finishes college." And with housing costs so crazy, we really need more space. I smiled, thinking how perfect the timing was. That's wonderful, Mijo. Where are you looking? This gorgeous Spanish colonial on Sunset Drive. 4 bedrooms, amazing kitchen, perfect for a multi-generational household. The only problem is it's way out of our price range. My stomach dropped. They were looking at my house. My surprise was about to become their disappointment when they realized they couldn't afford it. What if I helped with the down payment? I heard myself say. As an early inheritance gift, the excitement in Carlos's voice was immediate. Mom, that would be incredible. Are you sure? It's a lot of money, I'm sure. Text me the address and I'll meet you there in an hour. I hung up and sat in my beautiful new kitchen, staring at my phone. This could work out even better than I'd planned. Instead of just giving them the house, I could let them think they were choosing it, then help them buy it. They'd feel like equal partners instead of charity cases. But when I arrived at Sunset Drive and saw Jessica standing in the front courtyard like she already owned the place, something felt wrong. She was on her phone. Pacing around the fountain I had restored, talking about my vision for the space and the entertaining we'll do here. She wasn't looking at the house like a potential buyer. She was talking like someone who'd already decided this was hers. I parked across the street and watched. Carlos joined her, and they spent another 30 minutes walking the perimeter, measuring windows, discussing furniture placement. They had notebooks, measuring tapes, and what looked like fabric samples. These weren't people casually viewing a house they couldn't afford. These were people planning like they already had keys. That's when I realized I'd made a terrible mistake, not in buying the house, but in trusting them to see it before I told them it was already theirs. I decided to test them. When they finally called me over, I put on my best impressed face and let them give me the full tour of my own house. Look at this kitchen, Mom, Jessica gushed, running her hands over the countertops I'd spent weeks selecting. I can already see myself hosting dinner parties here. And this master suite, it's perfect for Carlos and me. She led me upstairs to the room I'd designed as my retreat. Your room could be the smaller one next to the guest bathroom. It has good light and it's close to everything you'd need. My room, in the house I bought, would be small but convenient. Carlos nodded enthusiastically. The whole layout is perfect, Mom. You'd love the neighborhood. Very quiet, great for walks. And there's a senior center just 2 miles away. I managed to keep smiling, but inside I was calculating. They'd already decided where I'd be living, but not as an equal family member. I'd be the elderly parent, tucked away in the smallest bedroom, grateful for whatever space they allowed me in the house my money would purchase. The only challenge, Jessica continued, walking back toward the kitchen, is that the sellers want cash. No financing, something about a trust situation. Carlos sighed, which means we'd need the full purchase price up front, even with your help, Mom. We're talking about using your entire inheritance just for a down payment on a mortgage we still couldn't qualify for. Jessica's face fell dramatically. So close to perfect, and it's just out of reach. They stood there looking defeated, and I realized this was my moment. I could reveal the truth. Tell them the house was already theirs, and watch their faces light up with joy. Or I could wait and see what they did next. What if we looked at something smaller? I suggested carefully. Something more within your actual budget. Jessica's expression hardened slightly. Diana. This house is perfect for our family's needs. Roberto would have wanted us to use his insurance money wisely, to invest in our children's future. This is exactly the kind of opportunity he would have encouraged. The casual manipulation took my breath away. Using Roberto's memory to justify spending his life insurance money on their dream house, while planning to stick me in the worst bedroom. You're right, I said slowly. Roberto would want us to make smart decisions. Let me think about this overnight. That evening, I sat in my current house, staring at the property deed for the Spanish colonial. My name was clear as day as the legal owner. I'd been so excited to give them this gift. Now I was wondering if I should give them anything at all. The next morning, Carlos called before I'd finished my coffee. Mom, we've been thinking about that house all night. Jessica barely slept. We really believe this could be the fresh start our family needs. I understand it's a beautiful house, Carlos. The thing is, we drove by there again this morning, and there's already another family looking at it. The realtor says they might put in an offer today. I almost laughed. There was no other family, no competing offer. I own the house. But Carlos was lying to create urgency, to pressure me into making a quick decision with my money. That's unfortunate, I said mildly. Mom, we need to move fast. If you're serious about helping us, we need to make an offer today. Full asking price, cash. That's nearly my entire inheritance. I know it's a big ask, but think about the investment. Property values in that neighborhood are only going up. And you'd have a beautiful place to live with family nearby to take care of you. Take care of me in the small bedroom while they built equity with my money. Let me call the realtor directly, I said. If I'm investing this much, I want to speak with them myself. There was a pause. Mom, Jessica's already been handling the communication. She's built a good rapport with the agent. Maybe it's better if she continues managing the details. Carlos, if I'm writing a check for $485,000, I'm speaking to the realtor myself. After I hung up, I called the property management company I'd hired. Lisa, I need you to relist the house immediately. Same price, same terms. And if anyone calls asking about it, tell them the previous offer fell through. Mrs. Martinez, you own the house. Why would you want to list it again? Because I want to see exactly how far my family will go to manipulate me. 2 hours later, Carlos called back. Great news. Mom, the other family's offer was rejected. The house is still available, but we need to move immediately. I felt something cold settle in my chest. My own son was lying to my face, creating fake urgency to pressure me into spending my life savings on a house I already owned. Wonderful, I said. Set up a meeting with the realtor for tomorrow. All 3 of us should be there. Actually, Jessica thinks it might be smoother if you wire the money first. Then we handle the paperwork details. Of course she did. The next morning, I received a text that made my blood boil. Mom, the sellers accepted another offer. We lost the house. Jessica is heartbroken. She was so excited about finally having space for her sister and giving the kids a real yard to play in. I'm sorry we couldn't make it work. I stared at my phone in my kitchen, surrounded by moving boxes. Because here's what Carlos didn't know. I'd spent the previous evening packing, not to move into the colonial with them, but to move into it alone. I texted back, that's disappointing. I'm sure something else will come along. Within an hour, Jessica called. Her voice was thick with tears that sounded remarkably artificial to my newly skeptical ears. Diana, I'm so sorry. I know how excited you were about the house too. Carlos told me you were looking forward to the garden and having space for your crafts. Interesting. I'd never mentioned being excited about anything specific. She was projecting what she thought I should feel. These things happen, Jessica. The realtor said the other buyers might back out. Sometimes deals fall through at the last minute. If you're still interested in helping us, we could stay in contact with the agent. I almost admired the persistence. Create false hope, keep me emotionally invested. Maintain the possibility that my money could still buy their dream house. I'll think about it. That afternoon, I drove to the colonial one last time before moving in. I wanted to savor the moment when I walked through the front door as the rightful owner. Not the elderly mother being granted permission to live in the smallest bedroom. But as I turned onto Sunset Drive, I saw Jessica's car in the driveway. I parked at the end of the block and watched. Jessica was walking around the house with a woman I didn't recognize, pointing at windows, gesturing toward the garden, clearly giving some kind of tour. They spent 20 minutes outside before Jessica unlocked the front door with a key I definitely hadn't given her. A key she had. To a house she thought we'd lost to other buyers. I sat in my car, fury building with each passing minute. Jessica was showing my house to someone, using a key she'd somehow obtained, barely 24 hours after telling me we'd lost our chance to buy it. Then I watched her bring out what was clearly a measuring tape and fabric samples. They were planning interior changes for a house Jessica thought belonged to someone else, unless she knew something I didn't. Unless this whole charade about other buyers and lost opportunities was covering something much worse. I called the property management company. Lisa, has anyone contacted you about accessing the Sunset Drive property? No, Mrs. Martinez. You're the only one with keys. The listing was removed yesterday per your request. What about showings to potential buyers? No showings scheduled. No one else should have access. But someone did have access. Someone was in my house right now, planning God knows what. I made a decision that would change everything. I drove straight to a locksmith and had every lock on the Colonial changed within 3 hours. Then I called a security company and had cameras installed at every entrance. If Jessica wanted to play games with my property, she was going to discover I could play them much better. The locksmith was expensive. The security system cost a fortune. But watching Jessica try to use her mysterious key on my front door the next morning, priceless. I was sitting in the living room, boxes half unpacked, coffee in hand, when I heard someone trying to unlock the front door. The security app on my phone showed Jessica on the porch, looking confused as her key failed to work. She tried it several times, then walked around to the back door. Same result. Then she called Carlos. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could see her gesturing angrily at the house, clearly frustrated that her secret access had been cut off. 20 minutes later, Carlos called me. Mom, the strangest thing happened. Jessica drove by that house we were looking at, and she thinks someone might have changed the locks. She's worried there might be squatters or vandalism. Why would Jessica be checking on a house we don't own? A pause. She thought she saw broken windows from the street. She was just being a good neighbor. Jessica hadn't seen broken windows because there weren't any. She'd been trying to access my house with a key she shouldn't have had. Carlos, how did Jessica get a key to that house? Another pause, longer this time. What key? She tried to unlock the front door this morning. I saw her on the security cameras. Silence. Then Carlos's voice, carefully controlled. Mom. What security cameras? The ones I had installed yesterday. On my house. The house I own. The sound that came through the phone might have been Carlos choking. Or it might have been the sound of someone's entire deception collapsing in real time. Your house. His voice was barely a whisper. The house I bought 3 months ago with Roberto's life insurance money. The house I've been renovating, while you and Jessica plan to manipulate me into funding your dream home with my inheritance. The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. Finally, Mom, we need to talk. Yes, Carlos, we certainly do. But first, I think you need to explain to your wife that trespassing on someone else's property is illegal, even when you think you're clever enough not to get caught. That evening, as I sat in my beautiful dining room eating takeout Thai food off paper plates because I hadn't unpacked my dishes yet, I thought about how different this moment was from what I'd originally planned. I should have been hosting Carlos and Jessica for a celebration dinner, toasting their new home and our bright future together. Instead, I was alone in my house, watching security footage of my daughter-in-law attempting to break in, while my son prepared to explain how they'd planned to steal my inheritance through emotional manipulation. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom. The view from the top is spectacular when you've earned it yourself. Carlos arrived at 7:30 p.m. sharp, looking like he'd aged 10 years since our phone call. Jessica wasn't with him, which told me everything I needed to know about who was really driving their scheme. Mom, I don't even know where to begin. How about with how your wife got a key to my house? He sat heavily in my new living room chair, the one I'd chosen specifically because it was comfortable enough for elderly guests, but sturdy enough to last decades. The irony wasn't lost on me. She befriended someone at the property management company, told them she was your daughter-in-law, that you'd asked her to check on renovation progress while you were dealing with grief. I had to admire the audacity, even as it made my blood boil. So Jessica has been monitoring my house purchase for months. She found out about it a week after you signed the papers. Your insurance company called to confirm some paperwork, and Jessica answered your phone. She told them she was handling your affairs. The lies kept getting bigger. I never authorized her to handle my affairs. She knows that, but the representative didn't ask for documentation over the phone. Jessica got enough information to figure out what you'd done. I poured myself a glass of wine, noting that my hands were perfectly steady. A year ago, this level of betrayal would have destroyed me. Now it just felt like confirmation of what I'd suspected. So instead of talking to me directly, you decided to manipulate me into funding your mortgage on a house I already owned. Carlos's face crumpled. It was Jessica's idea. She said if we confronted you directly, you might get defensive about spending so much money. She thought if we could make you think it was our idea to buy the house, you'd feel better about helping us. Help you buy a house from myself. We didn't think you'd actually want to live there alone. Jessica figured you'd eventually want to downsize, maybe move into a retirement community. We could buy it from you at fair market value. You'd get your money back, plus appreciation. I stared at my son, this man I'd raised to be honest and kind, and saw someone I barely recognized. Carlos, do you hear yourself? You planned to trick me into giving you money for a house I already owned, then convince me to sell it to you later? When you say it like that, it sounds criminal. Because it is criminal. It's called fraud. He put his head in his hands. We never meant for it to go this far. Jessica just got excited about the house, started planning, making lists. She thought if she could show you how perfect it would be for all of us, with me in the smallest bedroom. That was never the plan. I pulled out my phone and showed him the security footage from that morning. Jessica trying multiple keys, walking around the house, peering in windows, calling him in frustration. This was never the plan either, I suppose. The next morning, Jessica called me directly for the first time in months. Her voice had lost all pretense of sweetness. Diana, Carlos told me about your little revelation. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Oh. I understand perfectly. You've been planning to defraud me for months. That's a very harsh way to put it. We were trying to find a solution that worked for everyone. I almost laughed. A solution where you get a mansion, and I get a small bedroom and the privilege of funding your mortgage. You're twisting our intentions. We never wanted to hurt you. Jessica, you impersonated someone with authority over my finances. You obtained keys to my property under false pretenses. You've been showing my house to other people without permission. What part of that was meant to help me? A long pause. Then her voice changed completely, dropping the fake concern and revealing something much colder. Fine, You want to play hardball. You bought that house to manipulate us. You knew we were looking in that neighborhood. You knew we needed more space. You bought it specifically to dangle it in front of us, then snatch it away. The accusation was so ridiculous I actually laughed. Jessica, I bought the house as a surprise gift for your family. I was planning to hand you the deed and tell you it was yours. Right. That's why you kept it secret for 3 months. I kept it secret because I wanted it to be perfect before I surprised you. I had contractors working around the clock to make sure everything was exactly right. Another pause. Prove it. I'm sorry. Prove you bought it as a gift. Show me the paperwork that says you intended to transfer ownership to Carlos. I realized then that Jessica had never believed I might be genuinely generous. In her mind, every action had an ulterior motive. Every kindness was manipulation. She couldn't conceive of someone spending their inheritance on a gift for family members. I don't need to prove my intentions to you, Jessica. But I can prove that you've been trespassing on my property. Carlos is your son. Family has a right to respect boundaries. You lost that right when you decided to lie and scheme instead of having an honest conversation. The conversation ended with Jessica hanging up on me. 20 minutes later, Carlos called. Mom, Jessica's upset. She feels like you're punishing her for caring about our family's future. Carlos. Your wife committed multiple crimes. She's not the victim here. Couldn't we all just sit down and talk this through? Find a way to make this work for everyone. I looked around my beautiful house, thinking about how many compromises I'd made over the years. How many times I'd given in to keep peace in the family. Carlos. I'm done making things work for everyone else at my own expense. For 3 weeks, my phone rang constantly. Carlos called every morning, Jessica every afternoon. Sometimes together in the evening. The pattern was predictable. Guilt, bargaining, anger, more guilt. Mom, Jessica's been having panic attacks. The stress of losing the house is affecting her health. That stopped me cold. Panic attacks? She can't sleep. She's not eating. We weren't going to tell you this. But she's been seeing a therapist about anxiety and depression. This whole situation has been triggering for her. And there it was. The mental health card. Played exactly when I'd started feeling strong enough to maintain my boundaries. Carlos, I understand Jessica is upset. There are many lovely houses in your actual price range. But Mom, this house is perfect. Jessica's already planned where everything would go. Picked out paint colors. She's emotionally invested. She's emotionally invested in my house that she tried to steal from me. She never tried to steal anything. She just got excited about the possibility. I hung up and called my lawyer. Mrs. Martinez, based on what you've told me, your daughter-in-law may have committed identity theft, fraud, and trespassing. Do you want to press charges? I thought about my grandchildren growing up with a mother who thought manipulation was normal family behavior. Not yet. But I want everything documented in case this escalates. That evening, Jessica showed up at my door. She looked genuinely terrible, pale, thin. Exhausted in a way that suggested the mental health crisis was real. Diana, can we please talk? Just the two of us. No Carlos, no lawyers, no games. Against my better judgment, I let her in. I'm sorry, she said, sitting on the edge of my sofa like she was ready to run. I handled everything wrong. When I found out about the house, I panicked. It was the first honest thing she'd said in months. Why didn't you just ask for help? Because you've already done so much. The loan for Carlos's business startup, the car repair last year, Christmas gifts when we were struggling. I was embarrassed to ask for more. I understood that feeling. The pride that makes you do stupid things rather than admit you need help. So instead of asking, you decided to trick me. I thought if I could make it seem like your idea to help us buy the house, You'd feel good about it instead of resentful. I thought I was protecting your feelings. Jessica's confession should have made me feel better, but it only made me angrier. Because underneath, her apology was the same condescending assumption that had driven everything else, that I was too fragile to handle the truth. Jessica, I've been managing my own feelings for 59 years. I don't need you to protect me from my own generosity. I know that now. I made a mistake. You made several mistakes. Identity theft, fraud, trespassing, lying to my son about your actions. She flinched. Carlos doesn't know about all of it. What doesn't he know? Jessica looked around my living room at the furniture I'd chosen, the artwork I'd hung, the life I'd built without their input or approval. He doesn't know I've been researching ways to get you to transfer the house to us as a gift. Tax benefits, estate planning, asset protection from potential nursing home costs. The scheme was even more elaborate than I'd realized. Jessica hadn't just wanted to manipulate me into funding their mortgage. She'd wanted to manipulate me into giving up ownership entirely. Jessica, do you understand that what you're describing is elder financial abuse? She went very still. That's not what this was. What else would you call systematically planning to trick an elderly family member into signing over valuable assets? I was trying to help our family. You were trying to help yourself at my expense. We sat in silence for several minutes. Outside, I could hear the evening sounds of my new neighborhood. Children playing, dogs barking, normal families living normal lives without elaborate deception. What happens now? Jessica asked finally. Now you and Carlos figure out your housing situation without involving my money or my property. You learn to budget. Get second jobs if necessary. Find a place you can actually afford. Jessica started crying then, not the manipulative tears I'd heard on the phone, but the kind of exhausted sobbing that comes when someone finally understands they've lost everything through their own choices. Diana, please. I know I messed up. But we could still make this work. We could pay rent. Everyone could have what they need. I looked at this woman who'd spent months planning to manipulate me out of my home and my money, who was now begging me to let her do exactly what she'd originally schemed for. Jessica, the fact that you think I should trust you with anything after what you've done tells me you still don't understand how badly you've behaved. 8 months later, I hosted my first dinner party in the Spanish Colonial, not for Carlos and Jessica, who'd moved into a modest rental house across town and were slowly learning to live within their means. Not for Jessica's sister, who'd apparently found other arrangements when her housing plans fell through. I hosted dinner for my neighbors. The retired teacher next door who'd brought me flowers when I moved in. The young couple across the street who'd invited me to their book club. The family at the end of the block whose children sometimes helped me carry groceries. These people, who barely knew me, had shown me more genuine kindness in 8 months than my own family had in years. Carlos and I were slowly rebuilding our relationship. He called every Sunday now, conversations that were awkward but honest. He'd apologized repeatedly, insisted on individual therapy, and was working to understand how he'd let Jessica's manipulations cloud his judgment. Jessica and I maintained a polite distance. She was civil during the monthly family dinners Carlos organized, but I could see in her eyes that she still thought I'd overreacted, that I should have been grateful for her elaborate schemes to involve me in their lives. But the real revelation came from my lawyer, who'd done some research into Jessica's background after I told him the full story. Mrs. Martinez, I thought you should know. This wasn't Jessica's first time manipulating elderly family members. Her grandfather signed over significant assets to Jessica's parents 3 years ago under very similar circumstances. fake concerns about tax implications, pressure to make decisions quickly for the family's benefit. The pattern was clear. Jessica hadn't stumbled into elder abuse through desperation. She'd learned it, practiced it, refined it as a family tradition. What happened to the grandfather? He died in a state nursing facility 18 months later. The family sold his assets immediately after the funeral. I thought about how close I'd come to the same fate. If I hadn't kept the house purchase secret, if I hadn't installed security cameras, if I'd been just a little more trusting or a little more isolated, I would have ended up exactly like Jessica's grandfather. Instead, I was sitting in my beautiful dining room, surrounded by friends who'd chosen to know me rather than family who'd chosen to use me. My phone buzzed with a text from Carlos. "Mom, Jessica wanted me to ask if you'd consider cosigning a loan for us. We found a house we really like, but we need help qualifying." I stared at the message for a long time, thinking about trust and boundaries, and the difference between helping someone and enabling them. I texted back, "I'll consider it if Jessica completes a financial counseling program and commits to family therapy for at least 6 months." His response came quickly. "She says that's unnecessary. We just need a simple yes or no." I deleted the conversation and went back to reading my book. Some people never learn, but some of us learn exactly enough to save ourselves. And sometimes that's the only victory that matters. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Your story matters too.
Thank you for watching, for listening, and for sharing this time with me. If you enjoyed this journey, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next story. Until next time, take care and keep cherishing the chapters of your life.